How do we do small talk and why some of us dislike or even hate it? Hello ladies, hello gentlemen. Welcome back again to our channel. My name is Sheryl and that is the topic for today's video, small talk. If you are one of those people who dislike or hate having a small talk, I hope this video will help you to have a guide on how to navigate this situation if you are being approached by it. So first, I think what is important is we define what is small talk. What is small talk? Well, small talk, if you are going to look in the net, it goes to a summary where it is defined as just a polite conversation with uncontroversial or universal, unimportant matters or topics. So now that we defined it, let us discuss why some of us shy away or dislike or even hate to have this situation, to have a small talk with somebody else within a group or in any events or in any social situations. First, I think we have to discuss what are some factors that we have that really affect why some people dislike or hate or shy away from having a small talk. And I think the first factor that comes in my mind is the culture, okay? Some cultures, having a small talk is a norm, is part of the community. For example, in American culture, having a small talk within a community, if you are going out, in a party, in an event, small talk is widely accepted and it is a norm. So for them, for these people, it is part of growing up. It is just part of their culture. But in some cultures, small talk is not widely accepted as norm. So you don't have to wonder if you meet somebody or if you see in the internet, there are some videos that really make fun of having a small talk. Some people just find it just a waste of time and unnecessary thing to do because probably it's not part of their culture. They're not grew up with this kind of norm that people just have a small talk with the strangers. Another factors are our personality traits. There are some people who are just people persons and there are people who are shy and introverted. Say for example, if you are an introverted person, if you are in a crowd, if you have to do a small talk, sometimes it feels really awkward that you just want to disappear and you just want to go home. And if you are in a crowd where you have to deal with so many small talks with different people, some introverted people, they just really get drained and they just need their alone time more than being around with strangers and doing small talk. On the other side, if you are a natural people person, you are extroverted. For you, it's just natural to, deal with people, to talk with people, because you are genuinely interested to talk with different kinds of people. Another one, if you have social anxieties or any anxieties, this really affect how you handle small talk. Of course, you will have more difficulty dealing with talking to strangers and navigating conversation like this. So these are the factors that really affect most of us. How do we handle conversation in general, actually, not just small talk? So we have to be more understanding if some people find having a small talk is difficult. Okay, now that we discussed those factors that affect some of us, how we perceive or how we handle small talk, now let us try to, or at least let me try to convince you why you still need to at least try to learn how to handle small talk. And maybe it will help you to at least hate or dislike it a little bit less. Maybe not love it, but at least next time you are going to be approached by it, then it will help you how you are going to navigate this kind of situation. And for that, let us answer, do we really need small talk? I think obviously the answer is yes and no. Yes, if you are still part of the society again, then you are not going to be spared to be in this situation where you have to have this kind of conversation. I think even in those countries that is not a norm, if you are part of the society, if you are part of workforce, if you are part of a community, then there will come a time that you are going to be in this situation where you have to handle small talk. And no, if you are just going to lock yourself in your room or live somewhere where there are no other people, then of course you can say that you don't have to really learn how to do a small talk and how to handle it, and 100% then avoid it. But for most of us, we are part of the society, so let us accept now the fact that small talk is part of our daily lives, probably not daily, but of our lives. And since it is part of our lives, even if we dislike it, even if we hate it, I think it is not bad to learn how to do small talk, how to handle this kind of conversation in our lives. Now, another one, if you are those kind of people who really dislike a shallow conversation, those meaningful relationship, at least most of them, like for example, friendships or romantic relationships, most of it you might agree that it starts with a simple hello and how are you? A simple conversation which we define as having a small talk. So the point is having a small talk can lead to a deep meaningful conversation too, and a deep meaningful relationships. A conversation like this can expand your networks. Okay, so now that you're a little bit convinced, I'm guessing, how do we do small talk? How do we navigate small talk? Well, obviously, of course, it starts with saying hello or saying how are you. It depends in the event, how formal, or it depends on with whom you are talking to. If it's your neighbors, of course, it is just informal to say hi, hello, how are you, good morning, all this stuff. So before you start clicking away this video because now you start feeling icky, saying hello and how are you is universal. I think we just have different way of saying it, depends where we are, but it is just, being polite of acknowledging one's person's presence. So we always have to go back to the definition of what is small talk. It is a polite conversation. It is a polite, quick conversation for some. So be polite and just say hello and how are you. And then it depends on the situation where you are. If you are still going to continue next conversation starter, but more of that we're gonna discuss later. But in this moment, you acknowledge the person's presence by saying hello or how are you. Of course, if you know the person, you won't introduce yourself. But if you're in an event where it's a little bit formal, you usually introduce yourself. And then you say your name or your last name. It will depend on the situation. Now, I want to emphasize how important it is to be sincere, with our simple, polite conversation starters. I notice for some people, this hello and how are you is just a matter of just doing it for the sake of doing it. Be mindful of how you say it, of your gestures. What do I mean by that? If you meet your neighbor, for example, and the neighbor say hello or you say hello, do it sincerely. Say it in a sincere way. Mean your hello and hi. Even if it's just a simple conversation starter, let us not treat it like, a usual chore that we just have to do and that's it. Really mean your simple hi and hello. Even if it's just a simple hi and hello, mean it. Say it sincerely. Let the person really feel that you acknowledge the other person's presence. So now we are in the part where we find ourselves, or at least some of us find ourselves a little bit aloof, a little bit awkward, because after hi and hello, what comes next? We know this dilemma. Some or most of us, probably most of us, yes, we've been in this situation. But the question is how we're gonna progress with a conversation. So in this situation, it is very important to be observant. Now we are going to use our common sense. Is the situation still approaches us to continue the quick conversation? Does it still invite for us to have further conversation starters? What do I mean by that? For example, if your neighbors or neighbor are or is in a hurry and you just say hi and hello, of course you don't want to stop the person. You just say hi, hello, and then you smile and then you give gestures that, yeah, you are ending the conversation. So now, what if you are in an event and you have the time to progress the small talk? What are you going to do? What is now the next conversation starters? We heard it. It's not just all about how's the weather outside, or it's not just about how are you today or what did you do today. We can still have more topics than that, and that is what we are going to discuss furthermore. This kind of conversation starters, what we call the icebreakers. We've heard it, like what I've mentioned, is the weather. It is a very cliche icebreaker in a small talk. But what is more than that? Now we are going back to being observant. Observe your surroundings and then see what are the common information, the common knowledge that you have with these people around. Say, for example, you are in an event. What brings you all together in that event? For sure, you have sessions. Maybe you could ask, what is your favorite part of the events or part of the session? What brings you here? Tip again, avoid asking close-ended questions. Use what or why. So what brings you here in this event? Why are you interested in this kind of event? So those are more open-ended questions that invites, further explanation or further answer. Another one is, for example, if you are in a party, like let's say you have been invited in that party and you are in this group and you're trying to have a conversation with this group or even with one person, try to be observant on how this person is showcasing his or her personality. Does that person wearing something, bold, earrings or jewelry? It could be a conversation piece. That's the term. Look for a conversation piece that you can talk about, that you can probably mention or ask about. And then it is as well an opportunity for you to compliment the person, of course genuinely. If you don't like, of course, the other person bold earrings, then find another piece of conversation piece. But if you like it genuinely, then it's time for you to give a compliment. Most probably that person is wearing that because that person is proud of that. In regards to that, let us discuss what are the topics that we should avoid during this conversation, during small talk. Let us avoid commenting on their part of their body looks. You know what I mean? For example, of course, skin color, or how big their eyes, how beautiful their skin. So let us avoid that because it can be awkward. It can be an awkward conversation. And of course, you don't want to have an awkward small talk. Let us avoid these controversial topics. A very known topics are, of course, politics and religions. Let us avoid that because every one of us has their own opinion, has their own side. So let us avoid to mention that as much as possible in such kind of conversation. And another one is avoid rumors or gossips. Just avoid it. It's not ethical. It's not good to talk about other people's matters. Just avoid passing any gossips because it won't do good for you and it's just unnecessary. Next is, in general, avoid so much personal questions. Like, for example, about salaries, about price tags of what they are wearing, even avoid asking about their professions. I know it is for some being recommended to ask what do you do for work, but I personally don't want you to ask other people's profession as much as possible if it's not necessary, because it can be insensitive for some. For example, if the other person in that party is just having a hard time at their work and maybe they come there to just unwind and forget it. Another one is if you ask about what they're doing for work, maybe they just got laid off, who knows? You don't know what the other person's going through when it comes to their career or jobs or professions. So in general, I don't really advise you to use this question about others person's profession as a conversation topic. So just avoid it if you can. So many taboo topics now. What are the non-controversial topics, universal topics that we could safely talk about or ask about, aside from, of course, the free informations that we observe that we have in our surroundings, aside from the common sense we are going to use to progress the conversation? Well, some topics are, for example, books or movies, vacation getaways. Those are some of the non-controversial topics that usually are safe and good to talk about in this kind of conversation. Now, there's another advice that I want to give you, not just in a small talk, but in conversation in general, and that is to listen actively. Old but gold. Don't just hear the people's talking, listen actively. What do I mean by that? Again, be there, be mindful, look in the eyes of the persons when someone is talking and really listen, try to listen. Instead of just thinking about, oh, what I am going to say next, just listen, because the more we listen, the more as well information we get, and the more we could have a successful progression when it comes to having a small talk or conversation in general. Another tip is be generous to your answers. If you want the other persons to be generous to their answers, then you have to be generous too. Of course, you cannot control other people's answer, but you yourself, you can control what you are going to say, what you are going to give as information. Be generous about it, and the more you do that, the conversation could be more interesting for the group and or for the other person that you are talking to. And now the most important, I guess, is how do you end the conversation? This again, a usual dilemmas for some. especially when they are in small talk. For some, this can be awkward. For some, they don't even know how to. So, first of all, I think it is important to understand and accept that this is a small talk. For some, it is just a quick conversation, a quick interaction. For some, it's a little bit longer. So you can end the conversation. So how do you do that? Well, to do that, it's very simple. Again, be polite and say, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the party. If you're in a party, I hope you enjoy the event, and I hope to see you around. If you exchange numbers, so you could say, I hope to hear from you, or I hope to meet you again next time in other events. Some of you might ask me, how long can you stay in a small talk? What is the rule of thumb? Of course, you have to be mindful. Is the situation like still invites you to stay longer? Then you stay long. So have that sense of when you're gonna end the conversation. If that you see the other person there's nothing to talk about, then you can of course end the conversation politely. If you are, for example, in an event, if you're in a seminar, in a professional setting, then there's a rule of thumb that you spend in a certain group or with a person during a small talk within 5 or 10 minutes. Again, this is just a rule of thumb, and it's still boils down to having a common sense and being observant on how you're gonna end the conversation or when you're gonna end the small talk. So I'm sorry, my battery went low bat already, so I'm filming just like this. That's it for today's video, and I hope you enjoy that topic. If you like this kind of videos, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. I'm happy to share with you this kind of conversations, and I hope it will help someone or somebody out there. So thank you again, and I'll see you again next time. And as always, God bless always.